names in the chat. Hey, students. And then I see some new students that I've never seen before. Hi, welcome. Wherever you are in your journey, I am so glad that you are here. And I am joined by the amazing Teacher Peggy tonight. Now, Teacher Peggy, I want to be clear about this, is a full-blown Kaplan LSAT instructor. There's not a single thing that Peggy doesn't know about this here LSAT here. Peggy is a lawyer. Peggy knows all the things. So as you have questions, please make sure that you ask them. You can ask them in that chat. And if I don't answer it right away, then Peggy will. That's why Peggy's here. She wants to make sure that everybody gets an answer to a question. So don't leave here with any questions, even if I can't field everybody's question in the short time that we have. Don't not ask that question, but I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. Too. All right. Now, there's not much else I got to say here other than, yeah, ask lots of questions. I'm going to be asking you questions. You might want something to take notes with, because I'm going to try to teach you how to make a good study plan. That's why you're here. So to do that, I want to, I do have a deck. Let me get my deck going. All right. All right. You can we see the deck? Is that working? Because this is not going to go as well if you can't see what I see. Do you see what I see? Is that working? Peggy, we good? All right, let's do it. All right, so let's go. We're going to show you how to make a study plan for the LSAT, which is probably different than most tests you've ever prepared for. And I got to lay down a little bit of background knowledge. Actually, tell me in the chat, just so I get a feel for the room. How many hours so far do you figure you've studied for the LSAT? I expect that I'm going to see in the chat here a very wide range of responses. I probably have some people that are brand new. You've never studied at all for the LSAT before. This is like the first thing you're doing is trying to figure out how to make a good study plan. And then I bet I have some people in here who have logged, I don't know, dozens, maybe somebody in here is even over 100 hours of study so far. How many hours do you figure you have already studied for the LSAT? All right, yeah, there. So Michael's got 45 in there. Yeah, okay, all right, and our others 2. 60th for Nada. All right, so like we got a range. Haven't started yet. No, there's no bad place to be starting. And Aurelis, you don't know me, but you're not supposed to apologize when you make mistakes in my classroom, because that's how we learn stuff. So I'll let it slide this time. All right. But what we're going to be doing here, studying for the LSAT is different than studying for other tests, and the reason is the LSAT is a skills-based test. And so that's where I want to start a discussion, is just making sure you understand what the skills are that this here test is after. And here they are. Now, there's some other skills, knowledge and stuff that you need too, but these are the major skills that the LSAT is testing. Can you read efficiently? Can you organize complicated info, make those deductions, interpret formal logic, and analyze arguments? Those are the big skills. And why studying for the LSAT is so different than many of the tests that you studied for in the past, and you already know the answer to this question, there's only one way to improve a skill. You must practice it, right? You cannot cram a skill there. That just doesn't work. And that doesn't matter whether you're playing the guitar or trying to learn the LSAT, right? You just got to get a lot of repetitions in if you want to build a skill. And so that's why studying for the LSAT is different than studying for most tests, because most tests are knowledge-based tests, is what you know. Now, there are some things that are very helpful to know about the LSAT. My students who are here will expound on all of the great knowledge in the appendix of their lesson book, right? There's some things that are real handy to know, but it's what can you do with that knowledge? And to build those skills takes a lot of time and practice. And so that's why studying for the LSAT is somewhat different than studying for other tests, and why you need to have a good organized plan. And the other thing we should say right at the start here is just to make sure that people understand why the LSAT is so important to your application, because it is. At most schools, not all, At most schools, the LSAT is the most important data point in your application. The two predominant factors, your undergraduate GPA and your LSAT score, that can explain most of who gets into which schools by itself. Sure, your essays and your letters of recommendation matter some, but those two things, those are two quantitative measures that really do determine at most schools whether you're even in the running or not. And the reason is those two things predict how well you're going to do in law school. And in fact, the LSAT is a better predictor of your success in your first year of law school than your undergraduate GPA is. Now, they do better together than either one does separately, which is why most schools weight both. But the LSAT, it really does predict your performance in law school, and you can see why. You're going to need these skills in law school. And so while the LSAT's not a perfect test, it is a very fair test. And it does a good job of challenging you on these very skills. And so if you don't have these skills, I really do want you to think of the start of your LSAT prep. This is the start of your legal education. It absolutely positively is, because you are going to be using these skills in law school a lot. You need to have them. All right. Well, okay. How do they do that then? Well, they break down into 3 sections. And y'all tell me in the chat. I know some of you know because you've been studying. I know some of you know. Angelica, don't worry, I'm going to answer that question directly. Which of these sections is your favorite? Which of these sections is your favorite? You in the logical reasoning, the logic games, or the reading comp? Which one is the one for you? We should note that the current LSAT also has an experimental section. You don't know the order of the sections that you're going to get. They appear randomly. And one of them will not count towards your score. You get an additional one of the other sections. So some people get 2 logic games, some people get 2 reading comp, some people get 2 logical reasoning. You won't know which section the experimental one is. It's just mixed in there someplace. The sections are appearing randomly. We're seeing a bunch of people that like the logical reasoning, but we got some logic games lovers too. Where's my reading comp people at though? Where's my reading comp people at? No read. Oh, okay, that's fine. That's fine. This is one of the other things that you need to learn about studying for this test is different people have different strengths and weaknesses. And so while I will give you some tools to help you, there's not a one size fits all approach, right? Because your strengths and weaknesses are going to be different from other people's. That's just the way it goes. 35 minutes per section, about 25 minutes per question, depending on the section type. As you can see, you get a 10-minute break between sections 3 and 4. You get a 1-minute pause between sections 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Did I say the 10-minute break? It's 10-minute breaks between sections 2 and 3. There is a writing sample. It is not scored. It is administered separately. They send the full text to the schools. You should do it and do a good job with it. You should not lose sleep over it. All right. So that's the format. That's what you're going to see. This is a remotely proctored test and will be for at least the next test cycle. What happens in the future? Nobody knows. I don't think the LSAC is 100% sure yet. They've had to do a lot of rearranging and figuring things out as they go, as have everybody during this pandemic. Yeah, well, we're not exactly sure what's going to happen in the future. But if you're taking the test in the next year, meaning you are planning to apply for law school in 2023, that you want to start in 2023, this is the format of the test that you will see. Okay. So that's what is the LSAT generally. And now we got to get into study planning. And we're going to start with the hardest part of study planning. You got to start with your real life. This is the hardest part of building a good custom study plan. Or else, good question about the writing sample. It depends on the school, but it's much less important than the scored LSAT is. You still need to do it and need to do a good job, but it's much less important. All right. Study planning though. you got to get the rest of your life organized, and you got to take a hard look at what's going on, right? So what can't you change? And then also, what can you change? If I was advising you, right, let's say that you are entering your junior year of college next year. What should you do? All right, well, you should take a formal logic course in your fall semester. You know, take some kind of intro to logic or conditional logic course. That'll be very helpful. And then take the lightest possible load that you can in the spring. And then you want to study for the LSAT in the spring, leading up to that June test. We'll look at timelines here in a second. Because that way you're setting yourself up. You're making as much time as possible for the LSAT. But I'm a realist too, right? Like that's ideal. You can still get the score that you want, even on a not ideal plan. So it's just a matter of, but first you have to know, like, what's going on in your life, what can't we change, and where we're going to have to work around. I've had students in all kinds of situations. Y'all have been doing this for 10 years. I've had thousands of students. I have seen students succeed while working full-time, while having kids, while being in school and working full-time and having kids. While, right? Like, I know y'all are busy. In fact, you tell me in the chat, what do you have going on in your life that would prevent you from treating the LSAT like a full-time job? Because I've had those students too, right? That can treat the LSAT like a full-time job. That all we do is study for the LSAT. It's great. We do 40 hours a week on the LSAT. You can see a lot of improvement in a hurry under those circumstances. But yeah, right? Like that's not real life for most of us, and that's okay. That wouldn't be real life for me either, right? I work. So you got to build around your real life. Your study plan needs to make you feel organized and accomplished. Your study plan should make you feel good, not guilty. So the only way for that to work, though, is if we actually make it realistic based on your real life. Yeah, so a lot of people see, and so Demonta, I can't tell you how many hours a week you should study, because the right answer is you should study as many hours each week that you can without burning out. And that's the key bit. How much is that? Well, I don't know. If you got literally nothing else going on in your life, you probably could study for the LSAT 40 hours a week and not burn out. But on the other hand, if as many of you, right, you got family responsibilities, you got other school, you got a job, well, you probably can't study 40 hours a week for the LSAT. That's just not realistic. And so this is the hard part of study planning, is actually organizing the rest of your life first. And then finding the actual blocks of time in your calendar that you can commit to studying. You need a calendar, y'all. And you can do this with a paper calendar or day planner. You can do this with a digital calendar. Which kind of person are you? Are you analog? You into a paper calendar or day planner, or are you digital? For me, I am digital. If it's not on my digital calendar, I literally don't know that it's going to happen. Like if this event wasn't on my digital calendar, I would have forgotten all about it. So like, seriously, figure out what works for you, but you got to have an actual calendar, because that's the only way we can find the actual blocks of times that you're going to be able to study. And so, yeah, Tony, perfect, right? These are the times that I can study. I love that. And okay, so yeah, we got a lot of people old school. A lot of people go with the paper in here. All right, but not everybody. You got to have something. You got to have, and if you've never had to do this in the past, because you can always keep it up here, life ain't gonna be like that. Life ain't gonna be like that moving forward. We got to get organized. All right, so we start with our constraints, real life first. That's actually the hardest part, honestly. And then we got to make some choices. So we have to start at the end. And the end is you're a successful lawyer. That's the end of this process. You graduated from law school and passed the bar, and you're now working as a lawyer. All right. Well, to do that, you got to get into law school. So we got to figure out where we want you to send you. And I don't know where you want to go unless I know what kind of law you want to practice and where in the world you want that to be. And right, like what kind of resources we have to work with. And right, I just don't know. And you can't either. So this takes some work too. You should spend some hours researching schools and thinking about this. You need to know what your target schools are and why. The LSAC, the people that write the LSAT, have recently announced that they're pairing up with Law School Transparency, which publishes a lot of data on this stuff. That's a good source of information. The LSAC has a bunch of information about schools. The school's individual websites. There's tons of places. U.S. News. You can find this information all over the place. But you need to do some actual research and think about these factors. Now, these factors: location, reputation, cost. These are the three factors that our admissions experts. So we have admissions consultants here at Kaplan. These are the three that people that they all say people need to consider. Every single law student should consider and make their choice mostly around this stuff. And the one that often surprises people is location. Right? Everybody knows reputation, right? You want to go to the best law school that you can get into. And yeah, depending on our situation, how much money it costs us could be real relevant, right? That's real money they expect us to pay back someday. But location sometimes surprises people. The truth is, y'all, every law school outside of the very, very tippy top ones, and even then, every law school is regional to some degree. Because every law school is going to teach you to pass the state bar that you're in, more or less. You're also probably going to need a bar review course. You come talk to us. Come talk to us when you're ready to study for the bar. So, right, like to some degree, right, every school is geared towards that state that you're in. So if you want to practice law in New York City, you probably should go to law school in New York City, because not only are you learning about New York State's laws, which are different from the laws in other places, but also a lot of law school is about networking, right? If you want to work big law, you want to make sure that you are going to a law school that the big law firms that you're interested in working at recruit from, right? Or on the other hand, right, let's say that you're interested in environmental law. Well, you should be looking at totally different schools. There are some programs that specialize, right? Lewis and Clark or University of Vermont, that otherwise, right, like probably most people, right, Vermont is not like that. That's where I want to be practicing law. But if you want to work in environmental law, that might make a lot of sense. Or like a sports law. There aren't that many programs that have specialized sports law, but Tulane does. So this is what I mean in terms of reputation. Are there things about the reputation of the school in terms of connecting you with who and what you want to have, not just the ranking, although the rankings do matter. So location, where do you want to be? Reputation and cost. And let's be real, law school is expensive. This is another reason to take your studies very, very seriously. One of the benefits of having a very high LSAT score is that that is the large determinant of most scholarship money. So if you work really hard at this LSAT thing and you get a fantastic score, somebody will offer to make your law school free. Now, I can't say whether they're going to be the location or the reputation that you want, but free is a pretty attractive price tag for a legal education, right? We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the school. So, right, like that's real money. That's a house. Oh, it's a real nice car anyway. Like that's another relevant factor. If you're depending on the state that you're in, if you can get in-state tuition at a state law school, that can make a tremendous difference. And so these are all of the factors that you really do want to sit down and do your research on. so that you can know, okay, these are the schools that I would most like to get into. And then you got to set a goal score. And you set that goal score based on your undergraduate GPA. So you can do the research and you find, again, at lots of places, the LSAC website is a great place to start, what the median LSAT score and undergraduate GPA at that school are. And preferably we'd be above the median on both. The real facts though is most people aren't above the median on both. That's the way averages work. So if we're not going to be above the median on both, we got to be above the median on one of the two. And so this is your chance. My splitters out there. A splitter is a person that has high one, low the other. If your undergraduate GPA doesn't look like what you wanted it to, there's probably not that much we can do about that, right? There's only so much we can do about changing your GPA in 6 months. But you want to change your LSAT score? We make your LSAT score look totally different. Here's your chance, y'all. So if we're below the median LSAT or median GPA at a given school, we want to be above the median LSAT score because it is a what's the word I'm looking for? It's graded on a curve, right? That basically every school, the higher your LSAT score, the worse your GPA can be, and you can still get in. Versus the better your GPA, well, you probably don't need as good of an LSAT score to get in. Basically every school. And so that's the research you want to do. You want to know, okay, what's the GPA that I need to get into the school? What's the LSAT score? And you got to know both. You got to know both. Absolutely. So yeah. So people asking about grad GPA. Grad GPA matters less. They still use undergraduate GPA on your first pass. Although if it's been many years since you've been out of school, get in touch. No, this is seriously. Get in touch with the program that you're interested in. Call them on the phone. If you can go visit the school, even better. And talk to an admissions officer and just say, hey, look, this is my situation. Right? This is who I am. I'm really interested in your school. Have a conversation with them. Tell them about you, and say, look, I'm not sure that my undergraduate GPA is a great reflection. I mean, because right, I've been to grad school, I've been out in the workforce, I was in the Army, right? Whatever your situation is, I'm coming back now, and so like I know that I'm probably an atypical applicant. Here's the key phrase in that conversation. You say, but based on what I've told you about my undergrad GPA and the rest of my life, assuming everything else is okay, what kind of LSAT score do I need to be competitive? That's all you're asking for. Don't ask them to guarantee anything. Just, I want to be competitive. I want you to take my application seriously. Most people give you a number. Be somewhere around here, man. And then we'll look real hard at your application. And then you have something to shoot for. So yeah, if you're a typical student, just do the research on the websites, that kind of thing. It doesn't hurt you to get in touch with the admissions office. But if you are in a unique situation, get in touch with that admissions office. Not only are those the people that make the actual choices, but also they tend to be really nice. Their job is literally to make you want to go to the school before you apply. And then they make the decisions later. So the other thing, the coup de grace. So what you do is, after that conversation with the admissions officer, you go down to the drugstore and you buy a thank you card for, I don't know, like $4. And you write a little, thank you so much for talking with me. I'm looking forward to applying to your school. You made me really want to go there. And then you address it and put a stamp on it. I don't know, like that costs what, 50 cents? And you put it in the mail and it shows up on their desk and they open it and they're like, oh, look, it's a puppy. And it says, thank you. And they open it. Oh, I really enjoyed talking to Michael too. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting your application. They put it on your desk. It makes them feel good. And don't slip $100 bill in there. You're not trying to bribe them, but be a nice person. It matters. You want them to remember you. You want them to be fighting for you when they're coming down those last cuts. It makes a difference. Makes a difference. All right. Now, we set a goal score. Could take a lot of time and effort to figure out what our goal score needs to be, but to get into these schools, this is where I got to be. All right. So we started at the end. Then you got to fast forward to the beginning. rewind, I don't know. You got to take a practice test. Must take a practice test. Who in here has not yet taken the first, your first practice test? Anybody not yet take their first practice test? Because that's going to be your first piece of homework for me. And here, I'll actually give you a link. Where'd you go? Here you are. All right, here you go. I'm putting it in the chat roll. There you go. Take that first practice test. Get it done. Get it done. You got it. I know you haven't studied yet. You're nervous about taking this practice test. I know. Do it. Here's the thing, y'all. It doesn't matter how good or bad you do on this practice test. It doesn't matter. We call this the diagnostic test, right? That this is establishing where you're starting from, not where you're going to end up. It's not the destiny test. But we need to know, you need to know what this test is actually like, and we need to know what's your starting score. Now, some very, no, Maxwell, that's exactly the opposite of what you want to do. I'm about to explain why. Don't study first. Because some people find out, hey, I'm already doing better than my goal score. Some lucky ducks find out that they don't have to worry about this LSAT thing. Oh, that was nice. And then Maxwell, you haven't wasted any time studying. But most of us mere mortals, right? We're going to find out that we got a lot of work ahead of us. And that's exactly why we're taking it. We're taking it to find out how much work is ahead of us and what kind of work. Because even if you tell me, Jen, on my first practice test, I got a 142, that doesn't actually tell me that much. I mean, I know how many right answers you got, but I don't know where you got them. Did you get them in reading count? Did you get them in logic games? Did you get them in logical reasoning? Did you get them on inference questions? How'd you do on formal logic? Like I don't actually know where your skills are at just by knowing the score. The score is helpful in terms of giving us a general sense of how much work we have ahead of us, but you got to drill down on that. Which sections do I need to focus on? Which specific skills do I need to focus on? Because that's the way you can build a targeted study plan based on your individual strengths and weaknesses. And that's the kind of study plan you need. Not a one size fits all, just study everything, because you probably don't need to study everything, but a study plan that targets where you are. And so this is the benefit of taking our practice test is you'll see smart reports. Smart reports will do all the analysis for you. It's our computer tutor. This is just included in that practice test link I gave you. So it'll tell you, right, how many right answers and wrong answers you got on all the different sections and the different skills and the stuff so that you can, it helps you with that analysis. It also has all of the answers and explanations to every single question, every single answer choice, explain why it's right, why it's wrong, because you should review it and you should figure out what kinds of errors you made, right? Were you thrown off by a 180 answer choice, or did you just have no clue what was going on? That also is helpful information. You need to get as much starting information of this is where I am right now. This is where I want to be. And then we have the two things that we can use to build the point A to point B. So that's what I want you to do. If you have not yet taken your first practice test, rip that Band-Aid off, get that first practice test done. It's important. It's important. All right. Now, other things. What do the scores mean? What do the scores mean? So I want to walk you through. So first of all, you see here the you can see the bell curve of the LSAT, right? And so your percentile, if we lined everybody up and stacked them on top of each other, this is how many people got the median score, the 151. That's the average score. Most people end up right around the average. And you see, right? The vast majority of people are grouped up around this 151. And then right there's not so many people out here by the final test, and there's not so many people out here by their final test. So that's just the way bell curves work. But what I want you to see here is we break it down by the number of right answers that you need. So the raw score is the number of right answers out of 75 that you would need to achieve a given target score. So if you know what your target score is, let's say you're shooting for a 164, you want to be a Kaplan instructor. Well, then you need 60 right answers. Now, a couple of things that we should note about this. Couple things we should note. First of all, even if you wanted to get a 90th percentile score that you could become a Kaplan instructor, you don't need to get everything right. 60 out of 75, well, that's 15 wrong answers. That's 5 wrong answers per section. That's one whole logic game, basically a whole reading comp passage, and the 5 hardest logical reasoning questions. They don't expect you to get everything right to get a good score. Also, I want you to see how tightly grouped everything is. Because look, let's say that you start your studies, you start here at a 149. It's 40th percentile. Okay, so I'm here. Well, how many more right answers would I need to move 10 percentiles, which means right there's over 100,000 applicants every year. So you're thousands and thousands of other people you're moving in front of. 10 percentage points. To move 10 percentage points up to a 151, how many more right answers are we talking about you need to get? I know you were told there'd be no math. Yeah, 3. That's 1 more right answer per section. 1 more right answer per section moves you in front of thousands of other test takers. And it stays that way, right? You want to go from 151 50th percentile to 60th? It's about 1 more right answer per section. 60th to 70th? Yeah, it's about 1 more right answer per section. It's just that's the way it goes. The scores are so tightly grouped here. Let's be real. I know this test is hard, but if you treat it seriously and work really hard at it, get some resources, practice, can you learn to get 1 more right answer per section? Is that a doable goal? Can you learn to get 1 more right answer per section? I think so. I think so. I help people do it all the time, right? And so this is the thing, right? Like, okay, we just get, I need a couple more right answers. All right, let's keep pushing that score forward. Well, I'm not talking about get everything right, but I do want you to see the difference. Where are my gunners at? Holler in the chat if you're looking for a 90 for a score in the 160s, 170s. Where are my gunners at? I know you're in here. I always have at least a couple. Love my students that are aiming high, because the game's a little bit different for you. The game's a little bit different for you. Gunners, I want you to see that once you hit 160, 80th percentile, to get from the 80th to 90th, you got to get 2 more right answers per section. Not 1, 2. And to get from 90th to 99th percentile, same jump, you got to get 3 more right answers per section. And the reason is you're competing against fewer and fewer people out here. And that makes it harder to improve. There's just not that many people. So you want to move in front of 10,000 people, you got to go a lot farther. And the other thing is the game just changes because now you've got to study stuff that's not high yield. You've got to study the weird stuff that doesn't happen that often. And it's also not just the weird stuff, but it's the hard stuff too. You can do it. Peggy and I have helped, I don't know how many students hit the 160s and 170s. Tons of them. Happens every cycle. But they earn it because the game gets a lot harder as you move up this scale. All right. So now I'm a firm believer that most anybody can learn to get most any score on this thing. It's a standardized test. It's literally always the same, but it takes work. And so that's the part that me and Peggy can't do, right? You're going to have to put the work in. And I know we're here to study plan. I'm going to actually like build a study plan with you, but that's why we're doing this, is to find these answers, to find these additional points that will move our score up. It's totally doable. Get a goal score, know where you're starting from, and then we can chart our course. All right. Or else I know you can do it. I know you can do it. Irian, I'm so sorry to hear that. Most students don't run into any problems like that, of course. So it's really frustrating that you did. But you know, that's one of the reasons that they offer this test so often, is we can just get you into another test. And honestly, it doesn't matter. Like, law schools, really, the vast majority of law schools only look at your highest score. That said, our plan shouldn't be to take this test more than once. I saw somebody asking earlier, how many times should you take the test? Because, yeah, this is not the best way you can think to spend $200, I'm quite sure. And it's not that much fun. I mean, I like the LSAT, but it's not that much fun. So the plan is we need to take the LSAT once. Let's take the LSAT once and be done with it. You want to just take a bunch of LSATs? Cool. Sign up for Law Hub at the LSAC website and get Kaplan's link so you can get the answers and explanations. But sign up for Law Hub. That only costs $100 and gives you access for a year. You can take as many LSATs as you want. How many you want? You want to take 60 of them? Cool. So like, there's no reason to take this LSAT more than once, unless you have some kind of tech issue, or right, we wake up sick that day, or that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. Of course, if you have questions about scoring, we want to answer them. I'm sure you have lots of questions about scoring, but I do want to get into our actual study planning, and I will try to save time at the end so that we can answer any and all lingering questions. But let's keep pushing forward. Let's keep pushing forward here. So now I need to pick a test date. You have a baseline score. You have a target score. And the way we pick a test date is you figure out how many hours you're going to need to study and how many hours you can study each week. And then we got a math problem. Yeah, you didn't think you'd ever use that algebra stuff that Ms. Jones gave you. But here's your chance. Here's your chance to do a little bit of algebra. How many hours do you need? How many hours can you study each week? And then you figure out, okay, so I need this number of weeks. Most students figure out that they need 2 to 3 months, at least. Some students don't have much else going on, so they can really buckle down. They get it done faster than that. If I was designing a study plan from scratch and we had total flexibility with how to design it, I'd say let's plan to study for 6 months, because that gives us a heck of a lot more wiggle room. And if you, oh no, you're hitting your goal too early. Oh no, right? That's a good problem to have. Whereas getting close to your test date and realizing, oh, I actually need like 1 more month. That's frustrating. So it depends on your real life. It depends on how close you are to your goal score. And it depends on what kind of materials you're using too. Because obviously some methods of studying are more effective than others. But here's what the LSAC says about this. And I actually just want you to give this a gander. Take a look. It's in a book. They're saying the same thing as me. But I want you to see this stuff that they have down here where they're saying, when am I ready? How will I know that I'm ready? Down here. Now consider that. How much study do you think it takes where you're going to feel that way about the LSAT? Are we talking about a little bit of study? or a lot of bit of study where you feel like you can manage your time well, nothing is new, and working through the section is second nature? Are we talking about, like a little bit or like a lot? Yeah. It takes a lot of study. It takes a lot of study. So how long is that actually? You should plan for 100 hours. That's the sort of rule of thumb that I use. 100 hours if you want to make a significant difference from your first practice test. Top scorers, though, folks scoring in that top quintile, 160 plus, they average over 250 hours of study. That's an average. That means that some people are doing way more than that. I don't know for you how many hours you're going to need exactly, unless I know all the other information. What's your target score? Where you're starting from? What kind of materials are you using? Because let's be real about that too, right? Like, everybody learns best one-to-one with custom designed lessons. We call that tutoring, right? That's the best way to learn. But not everybody gets tutoring, because not everybody needs tutoring, and that's okay, right? There's other effective ways to studying too, right? But which way you're studying, that's also going to make a difference. How targeted are your studies? Are you using things like Kaplan's LSAT channel, where you're doing 1-hour workshops focused on an individual skill? Or are you just taking a bunch of practice tests? Like, taking practice tests is good, but if that's all you're doing, you're not going to improve as quickly because you're not targeting individual skills, right? It's like, let's say you wanted to get better, right? It's March Madness. Let's say you wanted to get better at basketball, but specifically you've identified, dang, I'm not good at shooting free throws. Well, the best way to get good at shooting free throws is to shoot a bunch of free throws. It's not to go play a bunch of games of basketball. It's the same thing with the LSAT. If you learn, man, I'm really struggling with hybrid games and logic games. Well, taking a full-length practice test, there might be one hybrid game on it. So you're not actually getting very much of the practice you've identified that you need, right? So this is why you've got to be very thoughtful about your approach to your studies. Like, what are you actually doing? And also what kind of resources are you giving yourself access to? Because the more targeted the resources that you have, obviously the better. Okay. Now, I have a bunch of people asking about ideal test plans. So let's look at the timeline here. Let's look at the timeline here. Those little triangles are the test dates. Those little triangles are the test dates. They give this test all the time. You tell me in the chat, what does rolling admissions mean? What does rolling admissions mean? What does it mean that law schools have rolling admissions? And so this is what I was saying in terms of, if I was designing an ideal study plan, you guys are way ahead of the game. You're planning to apply for admission for fall 2023. All right, junior semester, or this fall semester, take some kind of class on conditional logic. Don't worry about your LSAT studies. But then starting in the new year, right? Starting in the spring of 2023, I want you to start your LSAT studies and plan to take the June test. So start studying like February and plan to take the June test. And if we're not ready for June, we'll take August and we'll still be ahead of the game. All right. So yeah, as several of you are saying, the rolling admissions means that they start accepting people as soon as the application cycle opens. At most schools, it opens sometime in mid to late September. But as soon as a given school, right, Harvard Law, opens up its applications window, and start accepting people, they start accepting people. They're like, oh yeah, Connie, I want you to come to my school. They don't wait. Now, of course, it's the very most qualified people that usually gets accepted early that way. But as soon as the admission cycle opens, they start saying yes to people. And this is why it's an advantage to apply early in the cycle. You want your application at the top of the pile when there's lots of seats open, because that means that they're more likely to say yes to you, versus applying late in the test cycle. It's not saying you can't get in. People do get in late in the test cycle, but they have to have a very good application to do so, because most of the spots are already taken. So it's an advantage to apply early in the cycle. I'm not saying you have to, because that's not true, but it is true to say that there is a real advantage to applying early in the test cycle. Okay. Now, it's also true that we don't want to take this test more than once, as we've already said. You can take this test more than once, but really you want to take this test just the one time. All right, now there's one other thing I want to say here about early decision. Sarah, as close to when they open applications as possible. That's when you want to have your application in. So right in September, right? If you got your LSAT score already done, you already lined up your letters of recommendation, because you should do that in advance. You probably have a good draft of your personal statement ready to go. Then you just have to write the couple of essays that you need for those individual schools, and you should personalize them and apply. So that's the best time to apply. September, October, as soon as they open things up. Most of the applications come in sometime November, December. And if you do, you're not hurting yourself. Right? That's why that says average. That's where most folks get in. You're not hurting yourself if you're applying then. But if you are applying in the new year, you are making it harder for yourself. Not impossible, but harder. Okay. Now, early decision. My advice to you, because I know some of you are considering it, unless that school is literally the only law school that you think you would go to, you should not apply early decision. And there's many reasons for this. The first is that early decision doesn't actually give you that much of a boost to your application. Like if you apply early decision, you get in, you probably were going to get in anyway. The other thing is that early decision locks you in. It commits you. If you apply early decision and the school says yes, you are not allowed to go to law school anywhere else. And the reason you don't want that is because you don't know where else you're going to get into, right? That you should be applying to some reach schools, and you might get into one. And the other reason is because once you've been admitted, once they've said yes to you, then you have leverage. See, then there's a negotiation that can take place. Not many students take advantage of it, but you should. Because part of their ranking is determined by what percentage of people they say yes to them. So once they say yes to you, they want you to come. But you can turn that to your advantage. And I've seen this personally. My brother graduated from Emory Law School, and Emory was the place he wanted to go. But he also got into UF, and he was a resident of the state of Florida, and UF was a lot cheaper. And so he went to the Emory admissions office and said, look, I'd rather come to your school. It's a better ranked school, but it's a big difference in price. And they gave him a scholarship. Thousands of dollars just for saying to them, hey, look, there's this big difference in price. That's all he had to do. So, right, really do your research, unless that's the only school that you're interested in going to. I don't recommend that you apply early decision. All right. So Connie, just get your application in early and don't put it early decision. If you're going to get in, you're probably going to get in anyway. unless that really is the only law school that you would consider going to. In that case, fine. It doesn't hurt you. Okay. Of course, we can answer more questions of this at the end, but let's build a study plan. Let's build a study plan. I feel a little weird. We're already this far in. We haven't built a study plan yet. So let's make a plan. Let's make a plan. So first of all, I want you to critique. It's a very powerful learning strategy, is to figure out what somebody else has screwed up. So here's a study plan, and this is pretty typical for the kinds of study plans that I see from students who are new at this, because they've never done this before. So look at this study plan, and you tell me what's wrong with it. Why is this a bad plan? There are several things that I think are wrong with it. But you tell me what you think is wrong with this plan. Good, Michael. There's one. This student is never planning to take a day off. Yeah, that's no bueno. Y'all, remember the rule is study as much as you can without burning out. Part of not burning out is taking good care of your human being, and your human being needs time off. So yeah, we need to take at least one day off. And also, yeah, it's really weird how these 4-hour study blocks, there's no breaks for them. And there's also like, is this all this student is doing? Is this really this student's life? I doubt it. Where's the rest of the student's life? The other thing that I would say is, what is this student doing? I mean, I know what the student's going to be doing in their LSAT class, but what is the student doing during their study blocks? I mean, this isn't a bad first draft, but we can make this better. We can make this better. And so we should start by doing what I described earlier, working with our constraints, So that's where I want to start here. I want to work with our constraints. So, okay, let's start with our professional commitments. Oh, this is what this student's real life looks like. Oh, I'm less sure that you're going to be able to study as much as you thought, student, because this is what your real life looks like. But this isn't the whole story. This is just professional commitments, right? And this student has a bunch of other classes, lucky enough not to have to work. Got an internship, got some volunteering, but this is this student's professional commitments. This is what we're going to have to build around. Okay, but that's not all that's going on in your life. Well, you got to get your personal commitments in there too, because I know you're a real human being, and we got to take good care of your human being if you're going to do your best work on this test. Please, y'all. There's been a ton of research on this. You have to take good care of yourself. You have to take good care of your human. You need to eat right. You need to sleep a bunch. You need to, exercise a little bit. You need to get some time with the other human beings, because that's how humans are wired. We need that stuff to do our best work. A whole area of psychology called performance psychology has been studied a lot because the US military spends a lot of money on it. You just got to do that stuff. In terms of real quick, don't eat way too much or don't eat way too little, eat some green stuff. In terms of sleep, it's more than you're getting. Sleep is so important for you. Top performers average 8 hours of study a night, or 8 hours of sleep a night. But if you take top performers across disciplines, I'm talking jet fighter pilots, I'm talking Olympic athletes, and tell them, you should try to sleep 10 hours instead of 8. They do even better. Sleep is very, very important for your performance. It's also very important for learning. Don't steal study hours from your sleep. And then In terms of exercise, it's less than you think. The American Heart Association says about 3 hours of exercise a week, 30 minutes a day. And when they say elevated heart rate, they're talking like go for a walk. So this student's doing great on the exercise front. Look at them. Look at them getting their 3 hours of gym time. That definitely counts. That definitely counts. So okay. But also I love to see that this student is spending time with their humans. They're going to the beach with Tiffany and Mary. That's good. We all have those people that build us up, right? They're going out with Jordan, right? They have movie night. Right? All that stuff's important. And we should build that into our study plan so that you're not having to have these agonizing moments with yourself. Again, your study plan is supposed to make you feel good and accomplished. So that you're not saying, well, I really wish I could go to the birthday dinner, but I need to study. No, don't set yourself up for failure like that. Instead, put the birthday dinner on your calendar and plan around it, because you can do both. You can. Look, so we got our personal commitments in there, and then we can build in our actual LSAT studies. And see, this student, after they do on Monday, their argument-based questions, untimed practice, they spend their hour. They can just say, yup, I did it. Now I can put my LSAT studies away and go to the birthday dinner. And they don't have to feel guilty because they did the thing. That's better. That's better, right? And so notice how different this plan looks. It's a lot more work. It just is. That's true. That's true. This is a lot more work than that initial one. But see how much better it is. This student knows exactly what they're supposed to be doing when, right? They can see, okay, during this hour, I need to be doing this. During this hour, I need to be doing that. And notice how the assignments are specific. The student isn't saying study for the LSAT. The student is saying, do this time practice, do this channel session, do this practice test, review that practice test, being very specific with themselves. Notice how this student is building in breaks, that they're not just doing LSAT for 4 hours straight, because that's crazy, right? Your brain just needs a break after a couple hours. So make sure that you're building that in, so that you have a chance to make your studies as effective as possible. Because if you don't build in the breaks, right, those last couple hours of study just won't be as good. So better to take a little break and then come back to it. But you also see why I can't just hand you a study plan that would work for you, because it's personal, right? That is the thing about making a great study plan, is it has to be built around your real life, and your real life is complicated. And then it also has to be based around your specific strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, and Aurelis, I would update that every week, right? So it's fine to have those general study blocks, and some things each week it'll be the same. Like it might be that this student's plan is literally every Saturday at 10 a.m. I'm going to take a practice test. And then Saturday evening, right, I'm going to review that practice test. Those things might say the same. But there's other things should change, right? That we should change, right? After we've read chapter 13, we probably don't need to read chapter 13 again, right? So we should change those individual assignments each week, depending on what it is that we need to work on. And we learn what we need to work on from our timed practice, either from timed sections or from our practice tests, like that first practice test that you're going to take, right? That we use our analysis there to say, okay, what went right here? Great. And then what didn't go so great here? Oh, I need to focus on that stuff. And we're constantly updating the study plan. So having a general, like, this is what my usual week looks like, and here's where the blocks of time are, it's great. But then each week you do need to sit down and actually put in individual assignments. Because the more specific you are to yourself, well, many things. One, it's more likely you'll actually do it, But two, then you get that sense of accomplishment. Then you know, oh, check, I did it. I don't have to worry about studying for the LSAT anymore today because I did it. And then your study plan starts to make you feel good rather than guilty. Guilty is not where your study plan should be. I often hear from students that they have trouble with motivation. I bet some of you have trouble with motivation. I get that. I don't believe in motivation. Motivation ain't the thing. It would be great if I always felt like doing all the things I was supposed to do. It would be great if I always felt motivated to go to the gym, and I always felt motivated to like check on my credit card bill. And it would be great if that was the way life was. That's not the way my life is. I believe in discipline. You make a plan, and the more specific the plan is, the more likely you are to follow it. On this day, from these hours, I'm going to be doing this thing. And then you can hold yourself accountable to that. But the more abstract you make it, well, I should work out someday this week. You guys know you're just not going to work out, right? Like if you give yourself that loose, sometime this week, I think I'm going to get a workout in. You're not going to get a workout in, right? It's like when you're trying to make plans with somebody and they're like, yeah, we'll catch up sometime. You're never going to see that person again. Right? That's just not going to happen. If you want to see that person, you got to schedule it. You got to actually make it happen. And so it's the same thing with your studies. If you want to make it happen, if you're serious about it, you got to seriously schedule it, and you got to be specific with yourself about the when and the what. I love all those lawyer movies. I love all those lawyer movies. Now we'll talk more about how to study or what resources to use for studying, but I have some more general principles here about building your study plan, and then we can basically open this up to talk about whatever you want to talk about. So you got your test date. You've got your general, study blocks. What principles should you be using as you're filling that stuff in? All right. So the month of your test. I want you taking one practice test a week and carefully reviewing it. You should spend at least as much time reviewing practice as it takes you to take it. So if you do a 35 minutes time section, it should take you at least 35 minutes, honestly, more like an hour, to carefully review it. Same thing with a practice test. Takes you a couple hours to take the practice test, should take you at least as long to review it, because you should be reviewing everything, making sure you use the right strategies, making sure you understand why you were getting right answers, why you were getting wrong answers, and then doing an analysis of, okay, what kinds of things was I getting right answers on? What kinds of things was I getting wrong answers on? So that you can use that in your future practice. You should not be taking more than one practice test a week, most of you. If you have literally nothing else going on in your life, maybe. But most of us, one practice test a week. And honestly, y'all, I know some people, you'll hear stories on the internet. They're just like, all I did was take practice tests. That sounds miserable. Yeah, you can improve that way. Taking practice tests is important and good, but that sounds miserable, and it's not the best way to learn. So you don't need as much practice as you think you do. That's why I want you doing a time section every day, except for your day off and except for your practice test day. So if we're doing practice tests on Saturdays, we're taking Sundays off. Cool. Each day during the week, I want you doing a time section. You can get almost all of the same benefits of a full-length practice test from a single time section. You get to see all of the question types. You get to try all of the strategies. You get to do all of the section management stuff, strategic guessing, skipping. But it's in one small, nice contained package. And it's like a perfect hour-and-a-half study block. So that's the time practice that I'd rather have you do rather than full-length practice tests, because they're hard to fit into your schedule and they'll wear you out. If you take one full length a week, honestly, that'll be plenty as long as you're doing all this other time section practice. Those are my students that perform the best and get to that place where moving through the test feels second nature to them, is because they've done so many practice sections that they just have a rhythm. They just have a rhythm that they know, okay, this is the right speed to move through the stuff. So I'm not rushing and making silly errors, but also I'm going to finish the section. All right, that's the month of your test. Prior to that month, what are we doing? Well, that's where you're actually getting yourself fast, because I'll give you the secret to getting fast. The secret to getting fast at the LSAT is to get good at the LSAT. Get good at the stuff that they test, and the timing mostly takes care of itself. It never goes away entirely. But honestly, if you're good at something, you'll just be faster at it. You'll just be way more efficient. And so mastering the skills is where you want to really focus the bulk of your studies. And it's slow and it's hard, because you have to make sure that you are carefully understanding each and every step. And for many of us, many of these skills are brand new. I know when I started studying for the LSAT, I had never seen formal logic before. And a third of the LSAT is about formal logic. And I had no idea what I was doing. And it stunk. I was terrible at it, because everybody's terrible at something that's brand new to them. But that's the way it goes. So you just got to push through, right? And you got to build those skills up. So it really takes time, it takes practice. And because it's skills, it takes a bunch of practice. Now, we prioritize skills based on their prevalence on the LSAT, how commonly are they tested, and also based on how good we are at them. If you're already great at formal logic, what are you practicing formal logic for? I don't want you to ignore it, but like, you probably don't need to spend a whole bunch of time and effort on it. And see, this is what I'm talking about, you individualizing your study plan. You should not be doing the same plan as your best friend, because you and your best friend don't have the same strengths and weaknesses. That's just not the way it works. Now, one thing that I think is very helpful is doing one logic game or reading comp passage a day. If you can do both, great, but most of us, right, like, balk at that idea. But I know every single one of you can find 20 minutes a day to give me to study for the LSAT. Every single one of you. I don't know whether it's on your lunch break or it's on your commute, or right, I don't know where it is, but you can find 20 minutes in your day. And no, not a full section, just one logic game. Doing a logic game should take you like 10 minutes. And we're saving you 10 minutes to review it. And you want to do it every day. Now, if you don't have 40 minutes or half an hour to do both a logic game and a reading comp passage every single day, cool, alternate days. It was like upper body, lower body workout, right? On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do logic games. On Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I do reading comp. But do it every single day. It's only by having that consistent practice that you're going to start getting the consistent results that you want. It takes seeing a ton of logic games to get familiar and comfortable. It takes outlining a ton of reading comp passages until you can do it efficiently without thinking about it too much. And yes, reading comp is not actually about how fast you read. Reading comp and logic games, people don't like it when I say this, but it's true. They're actually the same thing. Reading comp and logic games are actually the same thing. What do they do? Well, in both of them, they give you a bunch of complicated information. You need to organize it. And then you need to make deductions from it. I know in reading comp, we call those deductions inferences. But yeah, the most common question type in reading comp is inference questions. And that's just a deduction based on the complicated information in the passage. It's the same thing as logic games. And the reason y'all don't get better at reading comp is because you don't practice it. Straight up. It's more important than logic games to your score, and you don't practice it. And then you got to update your schedule every week based on how your practice has gone. Because if you're doing it right, what your strengths and opportunities are should change, right? If you're learning these skills, then you should be able to check stuff off your list and be like, yeah, actually, I don't need to practice sequencing games anymore. I'm ready to move on to something else. Cool, that's when we move on to something else. So here's what you need to practice and the order. Here's how you should prioritize your skills. There you go. No, I'm just giving that to you. Here you go. Present. In logic games, master sequencing or ordering games first. They're by far the most common type. I guarantee you will see at least one on your test. Most tests have more than one. Then master your grouping games, matching and distribution in Kaplan speak. They're the next most common game type. Then master hybrid games. The only two question types you should worry about at the start of your practice are acceptability questions and new if questions. They make up 60% of the points in logic games. And for most students, they are by far the easiest ones. So those are the ones you should focus on. All right. In logical reasoning, you should focus on analyzing arguments. Start with main point questions. It's the single most valuable skill in logical reasoning. You'll see about 20 arguments for you to analyze on your test in logical reasoning. Out of a 75-point test, 20. You want to be real good at it. Then the questions that you should master are strength and weaken questions. Not only are you going to see a bunch of those in logical reasoning, you'll see a couple show up in reading comp 2. And after that, flaw and assumption questions, building on our skills from analyzing arguments. Strength and weaken, flaw, and assumption, those are building on those argument skills because they will all present arguments. They're just asking you to do extra work with those arguments. And then lastly, in reading comp, it's all about getting the big picture view. And at Kaplan, you can find this in our books. Right, we're all about outlining. Call it road mapping. It's the same thing. And then it's inference questions, because that's the most common question type by far. The test maker thinks that literally every question in reading comp relates to the main idea of the passage. So make sure that you learn to read for that. And then we start timing and reading comp early, because for most people, that really is the challenge, right? If I gave you 3 hours rather than 30 minutes, y'all would do great. But you don't have 3 hours, so we got to learn how to not read everything, because that's the secret to reading comp. I can't help myself. I'm dropping all the secrets. But there it is. It's not about how fast you read. It's about reading less. Don't read faster, read less. That's how you finish reading comp in time. All right. Don't forget about your review. It's important. It's really important. In fact, you guys answer this. Well, I'm not going to answer this. Why should you be studying every answer and every explanation for every question that you complete? And this is one of the reasons to get Kaplan's resources is we explain every single answer choice. That cap link thing. Why should you be studying the explanations for every single question, even the ones you got right? Yeah, good, Michael. Right? That first of all, you want to make sure that you're getting things right for the right reasons. Second of all, you want to see if there wasn't a shortcut, a way for you to get it right faster, because that matters. And third of all, right? This is the learning part. It's in the review. Sure, practicing helps you build up your skills. That's absolutely true. But this analysis helps you figure out, okay, how do I get better in the future? Next time I see one of these questions, or next time I see a section like this, how do I do even better? How do I get even more right answers? And so that's why you got to actually review. That's how you're going to figure out which questions are your strengths and opportunities. Again, you'll see when you take that practice test that I gave you, the Kaplan practice test, Smart Reports will help you break this down. Right? They'll help you figure out this is where you need to focus. These kinds of questions are your strengths. These kinds of questions are your opportunities. And they help you some with the prevalence too. How commonly is this tested? But then every single week, you need to update your study plan. When you're doing mastery practice, every single week. And the question is, and this question is not just good for helping you with your study plan. This question is really great as you're trying to prioritize or triage a section. Which questions should I be doing next? The question is always, where is my next easiest point? Is it the question in front of me? If it's the question in front of you, great, do it. If it's not the question in front of you, then you should be doing something else. And that's where you create specific focused assignments. If you're one of my students, you already know, right, that we've done this work for you. That's one of the benefits of the course is we've grouped up, we've already created mastery sets for you in your practice library of, all right, here's a bunch of main point questions. Here's a bunch of strength and weakening questions. Here's a bunch of flaw questions, so that you don't have to go looking through a bajillion practice tests to find just those ones that you want to work on. Here's all the hybrid questions, hybrid games, right? And then you build that into your study block. All right, I'm going to do this mastery set, or I'm going to go to that 1 hour channel episode all about that. Now, there's some other things that I wanted to give you. So let me give you the things, give you the stuffs. And where did I put the stuffs? Yeah, here's where I put the stuffs. All right. I wonder. Yeah, okay. You can see that. All right, good. So the first thing that I'm giving you is my study journal document. This is the one that I give to all my students. You're my students now. Ta-da. It's going to prompt you to make a copy. This study journal document will help you keep track of what you're doing and when. Don't forget to write down what you did, what you learned, and what you should do next. Be kind to your future self. This also has a good tracker for reviewing. What did you miss and why did you miss it? And then last, a bunch of strategic questions here. And these are essentially the questions that I would ask a tutoring student as I was reviewing time practice with them. So there you go. You can tutor yourself. It's hard. There's a lot of hard questions in there that you need to answer, but there you go. I'm giving you the tools. And then the other thing that I really wanted to give you was this. Is there anybody that would just like to go to like basically boot camp for the LSAT? Anybody interested in LSAT boot camp? You're like, that sounds fun. I want to just do LSAT for 5 days a week. If so, that's what this is. Now, I've got one of these starting up in May. It's really intense. I'm going to stop my share here in a second because you can just go into the document. But it's really intense. And I want you to see that, what you're signing up for. But if you have the bandwidth, right, then this really is a great way to quickly improve. So I'll let me stop my share because I want to answer your questions too. We did save like 10 minutes. I can answer questions. Yes, answering questions. I love answering questions. And if you want to sign up for that, right, you just go to our website. This is our intensive course. We also, it's probably worth saying, we have free trials of our classes too. So if you want to just try out one of our classes and see if it's right for you, I highly recommend that you sign up for a free trial lesson. That's what they're there for. We would love to have you come to class. I've got 2 of them happening next week. I also, my good friend teacher Eileen has one happening on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. But I have a couple happening next week. You can click on the link on this page, try a free class, and see what class is all about. But boot camp you'll find up there at the top. LSAT prep courses under boot camp. It's intense, y'all. But if you just want to show up and work, that's what that is. And then somebody earlier was asking about tutoring too. The best part about tutoring is, to come to class for a free trial, it's free. And then you can see the other prices on our website. But the best part about tutoring is you get a custom study plan and you get those custom assignments, right? That you have an expert building all that stuff for you. And I'll just be real, right? Like I'm better at building a study plan for the LSAT than you are because I've done it lots and lots and lots of times before. You can totally do this yourself. I know you can, but right, it would be a lot easier to have somebody else do it for you, like an expert. And so if you want that, that's what tutoring is, and we would happily do that and give that to you. All right. So there's all my stuffs. There's all my stuffs. I want you to tell me, what do you want from me? What do you want? So Stephanie, if you go to that page, in the middle of the page, it should say, try a free class. On the fence, try a free class. Here, I'll give you the direct link. Sure that'll work. Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right. Michael, so we'll try to match you with somebody that has similar availability to you. And also, right, we have an intake process that we ask about, like what your goal is and that kind of thing. If you're asking because you particularly want to work with me, I don't currently have any bandwidth, but we do have lots and lots of great tutors, and I will vouch for all of them. Like seriously, all of our tutors are wonderful, and we'll do a great job for you. So we'll find you somebody great. Yes, Jessica, the free trial is only our first logic game session. That's the only one. But that should give you a good sense for how the rest of the course will work too. You're very welcome. What other questions do you have, y'all? What else do you want to know? And if you sign up for the boot camp course, if that's what you'll get me like that. That's my baby. So in May, if you're studying for that June test, that's our plan. No, I'm gonna just mind meld with you over the course of that month, and you're gonna know everything about the LSAT in a month. But also, if you follow that free trial link, you can come to my class. I've got a couple of those happening next week as well. So like the 28th and the 30th, that's me. Obviously I'm not Eileen, but so Emily, yeah, so what we'll do is, for boot camp, it's very structured. And so we're going to be telling you exactly to do when. It's not going to be super customized in terms of our all together time. However, we also break you into small groups, and we group you based on ability. So like, right, if you struggle with logic games, you'll be with other students that struggle with logic games. And then you also get hours of tutoring on top of that. So it's our most structured, community-focused endeavor. You get to know the other students in the program really, really well, and you work together on a bunch of stuff. You do get some customization, but not during boot camp. It's usually after boot camp that you and your tutor really get in and customize things. Michael, yeah, I think you should study some. If you got questions about exactly what to study or how, I'd be happy to answer them. Start with sequencing games, start with formal logic. And really, formal logic is the first skill that everybody should master. There's so much of it on the tests. Miriam's asking, are doing press tests lower than 50 worth it? Yeah, I mean, the LSAT hasn't actually changed that much. There are some things that are different. If you go back into the very old press tests, like comparative reading didn't used to be a thing, and some weird game types were more common, like selection games used to be a lot more common than they are now. But in general, you're testing the same skills and in mostly the same ways. But again, I don't think that you need to take that many full-length prep tests to be ready. Like I think a half dozen, most people, a half dozen is enough, honestly. Maxwell, I don't know how close are you to your goal score? You haven't taken that first practice test yet, so we don't know. Take that first practice test and find out how close you are to that goal score. If you need to just get like 5 right answers between now and the April test, yeah, okay, that's realistic. But if you need to get like 15 right answers between now and the April test, let's push that off. Let's push that off. Laura, Law Hub is the best place to get them from the actual LSAC. That's the best place to go. Angelica, well, don't worry. There are going to be boot camps happening this summer too. I know that there's one happening in June, and I think maybe even one scheduled for July. I don't know. I feel like I'm just waking up from spring, and I don't know how it's already the end of March. We will have more boot camps in the future for sure. So Tony, the way it works is when you get your Kaplan course, we currently the process is not as slick as it's going to be, but you essentially get Law Hub access to. So we discount the price of the course to make up the difference, but our stuff plays together. So you'll plug your Kaplan course into your Law Hub account, and so like all of your results from Law Hub will actually transfer over to your Kaplan account, so you can have all the explanations and stuff, and they play nicely together. We've designed our stuff to use the actual LSAT stuff, so that you can get the real experience of the test too. Aurelis, yeah, you absolutely. If you're asking strategically, you should always be skipping during the test, right? Like you should mark an answer to every question, but it is good to find your points. And then also in your studies, it's good to mix up what your brain's working on, because if you just jam one thing, you're going to burn out. And two, it's amazing how quickly your skills will pick up rust. So you don't want to totally ignore a section for a while, because you will lose some of your skills. Bootcamp is absolutely live, every single bit of it. The free trial link was for a class trial. We don't, the bootcamp doesn't start until May, and we don't have a free trial for it. You're welcome, Maxwell. All right, we're running short on time. Any final questions here? I'll answer as many as I can. I'm afraid I'm going to run out of time. But if I don't see another question come in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you a song. No, I mean live online, like this, where we're talking to each other like this. Angelica, I would give yourself more time. I think that August, you will like yourself better as a human if you do that. I'm not saying you couldn't do it between now and June, but if you've got other things going on in your life, I think you'd be much wiser to spread that out over the whole summer. So Tony, the format is not like this in our online sessions. We actually have two different versions of online class. We have one in Zoom and one in Adobe Connect. If you sign up for that free trial link, you'll see the Adobe Connect version. You guys have been so great. Keep working hard. Proud of you for being here, working hard on this. I know you can build a good study plan. Let me send you off with a song. Thank you, Peggy, for your hard work answering people's questions. Great job, everybody. Keep it up.